Welcome to Biblical Christian Content, where we like to keep the content biblical. Let's go.
I would argue that every little boy and every little girl ought to be prepared to be a husband and father and mother and wife as early as possible. Why? I'm glad you asked. If I train my sons to be husbands and fathers, and I train my daughters to be wives and mothers, but God gives them a supernatural gift. And by the way, that's the way singleness is defined in the scriptures. In 1 Corinthians chapter 7 and Matthew chapter 19, it's a supernatural gift from God for a person to be able to live a life of singleness. So if I train my sons to be husbands and fathers, and my daughters to be wives and mothers, but then God gives them this supernatural gift that will allow them to live a life of singleness, they have lost nothing. Because ultimately I'm preparing them for the relationship that epitomizes the relationship between Christ and His church. So they've lost nothing if I've prepared them for that. However, if I do not prepare my sons to be husbands and fathers, and I do not prepare my daughters to be wives and mothers, and God sends them a spouse, I've lost everything. And that's where most people are. They spend their entire lives being raised in homes that don't prepare them to be husbands and fathers and mothers and wives. Then they want to come to me for 4 weeks of counseling before they get married. If you can't say amen, you ought to say ouch. And we are supposed to just magically do in those 4 weeks what they should have been prepared for their entire lives in their homes. Instead, we've raised our children to believe that it's somehow more spiritual to go and pursue life as a single. So that now, here's how we're raising our young men. This is basically the attitude that we're giving young men in our culture. The attitude that says one day you'll walk up to a young woman and you'll say this, essentially, I have sucked all of the joy out of life. Now I'm ready to marry you and die. Oh, that's not what we're teaching our sons. Yes, it is. Because we're telling them, have your fun now. See the world now. Serve the Lord now. Enjoy your freedom now. And after you've sucked all of the joy and freedom out of life, then settle for a wife. God help us. But that's our attitude in our culture. Instead of training them from the time that they're small, that there's nothing more glorious than this relationship that God has given for men and women called marriage. And that they should become prepared for it as soon as possible and as thoroughly as possible. Amen?